Hello everyone, welcome to Let's Talk with Lady B. Today is going to be a different edition entirely, and we're going to be talking about domestic violence in marriages. I'm not going to be doing this alone. I have someone here with me who is going to be helping us to analyze the causes of domestic violence in marriages and the high rate of domestic violence in marriage. I have known this person for a very long time. He has been a friend, he has been a youth leader, and he has been married for over 7 years. And I'm sure enough he has a lot of experiences to share with us. Meet Mr. Emmanuel Obo. Emmanuel, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, let's be very fast about this. What do you think is one of the causes of domestic violence in marriages?
Okay. Before we talk about the causes of domestic violence, let us first of all talk briefly about what domestic violence is.
Okay.
Briefly, I think domestic violence is a pattern of behavior that one partner in a relationship use. It's a pattern of behavior that one partner in a relationship use to exercise control, power over the other partner, and comes in different forms: physical violence, emotional violence, economic violence, psychological violence, etc., etc.
Okay, one of the reasons that brought about this topic of domestic violence, looking at the case of Osinachi, the minister that got killed a few weeks ago, and a lot of persons were saying that the churches are responsible. Some of the churches do not allow for divorce because she was scared of what people. So there was a point that got me thinking. The person said that that maybe she didn't even pray before she heard from God before she rushed into marriage. Now the question is, now I know you as a believer, as a Christian, and most of us before we get married, we always have the help of God to help us choose rightly. Now, is it that even if God tell you that this is the person that you are to marry, when you get to a particular stage in marriage, can this person exhibit this out?
Yeah, well, the issue is this: it's not really because of maybe based on who heard from God or who did not hear from God. Now, because if you look at it from the angle of I heard from God, God said I should marry this person. So what about those who do not hear anything from God, who do not even believe in God's existence, and they are in marriage for donkey years successfully, and there is nothing like act of violence from any of the partners. Now, the issue is not necessarily because we didn't hear from God. Yes, it is good as a Christian, as a believer, to seek the face of God before you go into a relationship, marriage, so to speak. But domestic violence goes beyond hearing from God, because on itself, it's a lifestyle, it's an attitude, it's a behavior. Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
So the fact that you hear that God called you, this person is going to, this is your husband, this is your wife, it does not really stop it. It does not really stop it.
Okay, and also let's see the difference between some people are saying, well, if he's beating you, go back, he can come back and beg you, probably he will change. Do you think someone will start beating you even if you leave the marriage and come back to beg you, and you come back do you think that person can change, or the person will still continue exhibiting this act?
Well, actually, the person, people change. Situation make people to change. So some person get into some act, not knowing the implication. Now, for instance, a man who beats his wife, and is one, he does not understand, he does not know the value of that wife. Now, if yes, act of violence is not really act of hatred. There are people who beat their wife, yeah, they love their wife. There are men who beat their wife, see, on a daily basis they love their wife, but they love their wife, but they still beat them. So when such wife leaves such persons, and they pass through the pains of loneliness, it will cause a kind of a brain reset in them, Are you getting that? So that will enable them to to think, have a rethink and see that, oh, this woman has been this, now she's not here, and look at what I'm passing through. So when they feel the absence of that woman, definitely they will have a rethink. They will know the value of that woman. And if in the process of that separation, the woman comes back and he continues with the act, you know that is a case of an unrepentant partner. So
okay, and also let's it's only women that comes out to say, my husband is beating me, this that. Do we have cases of men who get beaten in the house?
Yes, there are cases of men that get beaten in the house.
And is it that these men, they are scared of coming out? Because women are only coming out.
Men have pride. So it is not a good thing for any man to come out in public and say, my wife beat me. Are you getting it now? So it looks shameful and I don't know if you're getting it. So we try to hide it as if nothing happens.
Okay, so we've been talking about the physical aspect of domestic violence. Let's look at the emotional aspect and the psychological aspect. There's some kind of violation you do to someone, and it can also lead to separation. So what can you say about that?
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate that lately emphasis is now on physical violence, man to woman. But like you just pointed out now, the other aspect of other types of violence, abuse, the emotional violence or the psychological violence. These are other forms of violence that even men suffer, but nobody is talking about that. And something always leads to something. So at times when people are abused emotionally, they tend to react physically. Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
So people, there is psychological violence, emotional violence. For example, now there are some female ministers, female pastors. Let me use this now as an example. Now, female pastors, they are pastors, and your husband is not a pastor, and you are used to everyday fasting, 40 days fasting and prayer. And in that fasting, now, if I understand very well as Christians, now, when you are observing a fasting exercise, you abstain from pleasure, and that also includes, sex. Now, you deny the man sex in the name of fasting. That alone is an abuse, it's violent. So, and these things happen. So not every man will be able to absorb this and keep quiet. So some of them results to the kind of revolt, and it leads to physical violence, and this man has been abused psychologically. Are you getting it now? He has been abused emotionally. Now he's fighting back physically. I am not justifying it, but so
it can happen both parties.
It can happen both. Yes, both from male to female to male.
Okay, most of this violence we're talking about, there are some persons who cut for 3 months, who cut for 2 months or 6 months, and before you know it, they will just get married, and after 2 years they will start complaining, this is not the man I got married to. So can you say that the number of years or the number of months you get to cut your partner determines how much you know the person?
To me, cutting, I've always said that period of cutting is a period of acting. It's just like an actor putting on the costume and is on the stage, so he's acting. So he's assuming a role he is not or she is not. So after the stage, it goes back to his normal self. So he begins to exhibit his normal character. So that is cutting. It's a period, to me, it's a period of what? Pretense. So the number of years you stay in courtship does not really determine make you understand him well or her well. After all, you're not staying together, and there are things we will bear just because I want you, you want me.
Yeah.
So until after marriage, now we have said we have gotten what we wanted. So everybody will now bring out his or her own true color.
So
That is that. So the years you spend or the duration of courtship does not really matters. Does not really matter. So there are people that are courted for 3 months, and when I mean 3 months, from the day they first met to the day they got married, 3 months. There are some 6 months. There are some 8 years. I know of a couple that courted for 15 years. 15 good years, actually got married, and the marriage didn't last for 1 month. I mean, for 1 year. I'm talking about not something I read, people I know.
Wow. A lot of things have been said about domestic violence in the churches. Okay, and also, you know, they were blaming men of God. I had friends who were against men of God, that some of these men of God will advise you that you should remain in the marriage because God doesn't like divorce. Divorce is a sin. You're a youth pastor. I know about that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, the youth leader, the Christian, but the truth be told, things like this are really said in the pulpit. Are you getting it now? No pastor wants to see divorce. The truth is, divorce is not the last option, or it's not should be the last option. Shouldn't be the first. Shouldn't be the focus. So there are other options that should be explored. So if they fail, if they
like
separation, or
bringing
some families. So when it gets to that level, even though we are told that no, don't bring in the third party, but there are some level violence we get to that other person has to be involved. So bringing in family member for intervention. If that doesn't work, then separation. If that doesn't work, then you cannot be thinking of divorce. But somebody is being abused every day physically, and somebody's life is being threatened, and somebody is saying no, stay there until you die. No, to me, it is better you stay alive than to die in marriage.
Okay, so about domestic violence, and this is not the first show, or this is gonna be the first act of talking about domestic violence. Domestic violence have been preached in churches and on TV, on radio, on internet, and it's still going to be preached. The only thing we're saying here is shun away from domestic violence. So if you have a last advice for people who are not married yet, and people who are in marriages probably facing something like this, or people who are in relationship and they're already facing something like this.
My advice for those who are the youth, the singles who are intending to get married. You are in a relationship, and from the relationship you are sensing things that will eventually lead to violence of any sort. Not whether physical or any type of violence. Try to see that it is nip in the bud rather at the early stage. But if you discover that it's not something you can curb, then it is advisable that you stay. And for those who are married and they are experiencing this, speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up. Just speak up. Whether you are a man, whether you are a woman, you are experiencing domestic violence in any form, physical, emotional, psychological, economic, speak up. In all, say no to domestic violence. So that's what I think.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much for coming. Thank you for saying your thoughts on this. Say no to domestic violence. Thank you very much for watching today's episode on Let's Talk with Lady B. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platform. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.